Ladies and gentlemen, we are now continuing our meeting to the next agenda, that is to hear the speeches which will be delivered by Dr. Jacob Phelps from University of Lancaster, UK, and Professor Herry Purnomo from IPB University. And this plenary session will be moderated by Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar from IPB University. Before we start, please allow me to read CV of the two invited speakers and also the moderator. Firstly, I will read the CV of the Dr. Jacob Phelps. Dr. Jacob Phelps is an environmental social scientist dedicated to identifying strategy to protect tropical biodiversity. He leads the Conservation Governance Lab, which explores institutional, policy, and legal responses to leading environmental challenges, such as illegal wildlife and wildfire. He drew all a wide range of methods and approaches, and is active in the science policy interface, including through CITES and IUCN. Dr. Jacob Phelps has worked in the neotropics and across Southeast Asia. Until August 2015, he was a scientist at the Center for International Forestry Research, or C4, in Indonesia. His current research addresses the governance of key environmental challenges governing biodiversity loss through conservation, litigation, governing illegal wildlife trade, governing hydropower through EAS, and governing Indonesian peatland wildfires. Secondly, I will read the CV of Professor Herry Purnomo. Professor Herry Purnomo received his PhD in Forest Management and Policy and Bachelor in Agricultural Meteorology from IPB University, as well as a Master in Computer Science from a joint program between the University of Indonesia and the University of Maryland, USA. His research interests are specializing in forestry and climate. He conducts research on criteria and indicators of sustainable forest management, adaptive collaborative management of forests, company-community partnership, forest governance, mitigation, REDD+, adaptation to climate change, and furniture value change. Professor Purnomo has participated in scientific conference, workshop, and seminar, and has visited forests in Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia, and South America. One of his most recent article has been also published in the international journal with the title "A Political Economic Model for Reducing Fires and Improving Livelihood in Lowland Indonesia." So lastly, I will read the CV of Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain as a moderator. Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar is a professor at the Department of Silviculture, Faculty of Forestry and Environment, IPB University, Indonesia. He received his master degree from University of Canterbury, New Zealand, and his doctoral degree from George August University of Göttingen, Germany. He is currently appointed as a Director of International Program, IPB University. His research interests are genetics and genomics of forestries, conservation and sustainable management of tropical forests, genetics resources, silviculture and forest adaptation, arboriculture, forest transformation system, biodiversity, and bioprospecting. So that's all for the curriculum vitae or CV of the invited speaker and the moderator. So now we will start the plenary session to Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar. The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Vivi, as our MC for today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, dear participants, dear resource person. We hope that you are all in good health and stay safe. Yeah. Let me introduce myself again. I am Iskandar Siregar, or call me Iskandar. Yeah. And I will be your moderator for the, let's say, this is the last session of a panel discussion presenting to, I would claim it, the well-known invited speakers. Yeah, Pak Dr. Jacob Phelps. Yeah, he speaks a bit bahasa Indonesia, and also Professor Herry Purnomo. Yeah, both work together in C4, but now Dr. Jacob moved to Lancaster in UK. Yeah. Both speaker will have time to talk of around 30 minutes, yeah, including the Q&A. Yeah. If time doesn't permit to answer the questions, we hope that the speakers could check in the chat box. Yeah. So I encourage participants also to write your questions or issue, yeah, to save the time, yeah, in the chat box, and one after the other. Maybe I hope that Dr. Jacob also still staying with us can answer directly, yeah, in the chat box. Yeah. So without further ado, allow me to start the session. And the first speaker is Dr. Jacob Phelps, who will talk about conservation litigation to uphold environmental rights. Yeah. In bahasa Indonesia, litigasi konservasi untuk menegakkan hak-hak lingkungan. It is correct, ya, Pak Jacob, ya? So this is becoming an issue, yeah, especially in Indonesia. But I don't know in UK. But you have presented in the past that in UK is not as advanced as in Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken, in the past, yeah. So please the committee to. You will screen show yourself.
I will, if that's all right.
Put yes, Pak Jacob as a co-host. Yeah. Thank you. Please, Pak Jacob.
Thank you very much, Paisk, and thank you everyone for joining. It's a pleasure to be with so many colleagues, and let me say also with so many friends. And indeed, Paisk has heard about this as Herry and so many colleagues at IPB, because I've spoken a bit about this topic to you before. And I'm going to continue talking about it because it's an issue that, particularly as someone from an environmental science and an environmental social science background, is a topic that I didn't know how hard and complex it was going to be, but how important it was going to be, the issues that I care about. You know, yesterday and today's sessions are about environmental management and thinking about a new era of what should we be paying attention to going forward. And we often say that is going to be interdisciplinarity, more collaboration across all sorts of barriers. Absolutely true. And in my case, that has been increasingly working with issues of law and justice and rights. And it's taken years. These are questions that I first started to explore when I was living in Indonesia. So I think we started with this in 2014. And only now this year did we publish our first actual substantial paper on it. So it's been a really slow process. But I hope, as you'll see, hopefully you'll agree, an important one. I want to situate this in a broader context, which is that, I know we have very many interests in the conference today. Not everybody's focused specifically on biodiversity, but we are interested in changing environmental behaviors in various different ways. And we know that the next frontier is about changing our behaviors, and that uses many different tools. For many of us, that comes from voluntary sustainability actions. PES schemes, right? Incentivizing people to change behavior, or maybe getting corporations to pledge sustainability, RSPO, ISPO, what have you, green certifications for coffee. Or maybe, we hear a lot about green economy and preferential investments into certain sectors, all of these soft tools that we can use to nudge behavior. And on the other hand, we have a lot of coercive tools that push people, regulate people to change their behavior. We fine people, we incarcerate people, we jail people for breaking the law. And the work that I'm focused on is on that side of things. It's about pushing people to behave with the law, but a specific set of tools, which as Baik mentioned, are very well developed in Indonesia. And that's this idea of liability. So holding people responsible for the harm that they have caused. And that might be the costs of ecosystem harm, or the costs of restoration, or maybe of replacing things that have been injured, or the costs of to individuals who have lost income or lost land or lost livelihoods, or to the government that has lost tax. You can imagine a case, for example, of illegal fishing or illegal deforestation that has huge, not only environmental impacts, but social and economic impacts. And so the tools that I'm looking at are these civil liability tools that hold people responsible for the harm that they cause. And today's argument is that that is really central to the sustainability agenda, because no matter what, any discussion about the sustainability agenda needs to recognize that we harm a lot of things, sometimes legally, often illegally. And so here, if we think about over time, we have these original systems or altered systems, but they're harmed. And we often respond by asking questions like, how can we change this harm? Can we punish people more? Could we increase prosecutions? Or could we pay people to change their behavior? Or maybe we could get people to stop using a certain product or shift over to a more sustainable product. These are all incredibly important questions to ask for achieving greater sustainability. And we're doing it, right? Here's just an example, again, from Indonesia. Here we have the Ministry of Environment and Forestry's number of enforcement actions since 2015 to 2019. And you can see, through lots of public investment and lots of support and lots of genuine effort, we are catching more people who harm the environment, investigating, prosecuting, fining, and imprisoning more than we did in the past. You can see that the two types of environmental harm that have been most successfully prosecuted are related to illegal wildlife trade and illegal logging. So this is bad because it reflects harm, but it's also good because this is a strong governance response to problems that we all know we have. This is important. But the question is, what do those acts mean for the future? If a system is harmed, does fining someone fix that system? Does imprisoning someone fix that system? Does changing the behavior of future generations fix that system? The answer is overwhelmingly no, it doesn't. If I'm a critically endangered species or a peatland or a fishery resource that a community depended on, throwing someone in prison might make me feel better, but it doesn't fix the harm that was caused. And let's look at here, again, another example from Indonesia. We say that we're increasing enforcement, and that's good, but let's just look. Here are 3 cases of recent orangutan trade, people arrested, prosecuted and investigated, and then actually fined and imprisoned. And you see here's the fines and imprisonment for these 3 cases. This is a best case scenario where we caught someone and we successfully prosecuted. They didn't get away. But you see the fines are relatively small, the imprisonment is short. But the bigger question for us as environmentalists isn't increase the fine or increase the sanction. The question is, what happened to the species of orangutan? Did it go extinct? Because fining someone, if I fine someone $100, $500, $1 billion, makes no difference to the orangutan. It's still going to go extinct, right? So the question is, how do we reconcile what we know is happening in the world with the governance tools that we're often using? So let's again take this example of one of these orangutan from that case. If we have just one orangutan, maybe somebody sees it in the public and they say, you know, aduh, that poor animal, and oh, they broke the law, we should get the bad guy, right? That's true. But as environmentalists, as geographers, as social scientists, we know that the cascading impacts are greater. You get one orangutan, it needs to go to rehabilitation center. You get one orangutan, well, that's an important species. For what? For ecotourism, for seed dispersal, for who knows what other types of cultural resources, for intrinsic value, bequest value, existence value. You know, even though I lived in Indonesia, I have never seen an orangutan in the wild, but I love knowing that they're there. You know, there's only 14,000 Sumatran orangutan left. If I know that someone reduced even one of those, it affects me, right? It affects the people of Indonesia and of the world. And it also affects the species. You have only 14,000 left in small populations, fragmented. We know that every individual you remove could have an outsized impact on the survivorship of that species. And the other thing is that Indonesians have a contract, a social contract with the government, right? You are citizens, you vote, you pay taxes, you work hard, you follow the law, and in exchange, the government does certain things, including protect your endangered species. And when they fail to do that, that also has like intangible and moral harms that undermine public trust. So we know that all of these things happen. But how do you reflect that by throwing somebody in jail for 6 months or fining them $5,000? You simply cannot. What as environmentalists we should be concerned with, I think, isn't just stopping future harm, but when systems are harmed, how do we fix them? And of course, this is a huge focus in Indonesia, right? The BRG's work previously and so many other groups with peatland rewetting and reforestation, efforts to all the sanctuaries around Indonesia that are rescuing animals, all the reforestation efforts, private sector as well as government and NGO led. So the question for me is not how do we, let's not worry about future harm. Yes, we should worry about it. But when things are harmed, and they so often are, how do we fix them? And so the types of questions that this leads us to are, well, what is harmed and how can we fix it? How do we use governance to uphold rights when injury has occurred? How do we hold the people who are responsible in a way that is meaningful, not in an abstract way, but an actual way for the environment that's going to benefit and fix? And of course, what does this mean for the status quo and for this new era that we're looking towards of improved management? Well, my argument, my colleague's argument is that sustainability requires all of these different governance tools that I've already mentioned, incentives, investments, punishment, but it also requires accountability. And when we think of legal accountability, we usually think of criminal law, right? Hukum pidana. And the thing is, that's fine, but hukum pidana is focused on punishing and on deterring. And the types of things that I'm talking about are about fixing. Criminal law doesn't do that, but we do have another area of law that does, and that's hukum perdata, civil law, what we're calling conservation litigation, that is not focusing on getting the bad guy. It's focused on fixing the harm that was caused. And this is quite basic, but one of the things that I've come to realize is that as environmentalists and social scientists, we often don't understand many of the details of our own laws. And so for me, it's been a huge process of learning about law because that's not my training. But remember, the law is to uphold rights. Whose rights? Well, our rights. And so we have, I think, as scientists, a responsibility to understand what that looks like. And of course, Indonesia is a great place to do this, and especially IPB, right? Because of Bambang and all of his work representing the state in cases, both perdata and pidana, cases around the country, particularly around fire. So I think many people in IPB are actually more familiar with these sorts of issues than maybe colleagues even in other universities, because you have colleagues who are being, using their science to participate in these legal processes, and they've been very inspiring to me. And Indonesia indeed has been very inspiring to me, because it was while I was living in Indonesia that I started thinking about these things, and it was around this case, and it's a case that many of you will know or remember, because it's still been discussed in policy and in the courts, and that's the case against PT Kalista Alam. And that was really the first case of its kind, that this was an oil palm company that was illegally deforesting and draining and burning peatland. Very common, right? We still hear about this all the time, and Herry's work, right, that we'll hear about later today, deals with those issues. But what was important here was that the response from NGOs and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry wasn't just hukum pidana, but also perdata. And to that end, they were looking to recover remedies. So they said, you know what, you burnt and deforested this area. We want you to replant it and care for it over 11 years. And we want you to pay compensation for the ecosystem services that you have harmed. And that came up to a huge financial sum. Now, of course, as many of you will know, that case has been very difficult. That money has not yet been recovered. The reforestation, I don't think, has yet happened. And that's because the legal process is very complicated. The judges are not familiar with the process. There's a lot of appeals. There's a lot of uncertainty. And that's why I want to highlight that these sorts of civil law, perdata solutions, are not silver bullets. Like any other governance problem, they also have many limitations themselves. But what's interesting is that these sorts of laws Indonesia is really a leader in the world for them, but these sorts of laws are being used in other contexts, including to address biodiversity. And I want to highlight a case from France. And this is a recent case. And the reason that the case is recent is because the law underneath it is also new. This is under a new law from France from 2017 to illustrate that this is an area of environmental governance, environmental law that is still new. So in this case, there were illegal fishers who were stealing fish from a protected area to sell to luxury restaurants. So the case here was looking for compensation to protect the park, compensation also to get the intangible values, the mission, the brand, the reputation of the park. Here's another case that I just want to highlight, just to show you kind of the breadth of this concept. This is from the US. This is toxic paint pollution by the Ford Motor Company in indigenous lands in New York. The civil lawsuit required Ford to clean up. They had to spend about $15 million to clean up the toxins. They also negotiated that they would rebuild a community garden in that site to celebrate traditional ecological knowledge. Why? Because they recognized that when they polluted those lands, they also harmed cultural values that you cannot put a monetary price tag on, but which courts must recognize. So what you see is that if we are going to live in the Anthropocene, where harm is all around us, we need to think about remedies. And remedies is not just things that NGOs and government pay for. Remedies are things that should be done by people who cause harm. And that can be payments, financial compensation. It can also be remedies on the ground, but it can also be non-financial actions like building a medicinal garden, apologizing, doing a cultural or educational event. So when I was living in Indonesia, we saw this happening with Kalista Alam. And I said, whoa, why is this not happening all over the world? Why is this not happening for all of these types of harm? And that was my first question. My first assumption was, maybe the law in Indonesia is special. And it's true, Indonesia actually has a very good legal system that recognizes people's rights and these values and has been used. But I thought maybe other countries don't have this. Or maybe we don't know how to do it. Or maybe we could do it, but if the court goes to the judges will throw it out because maybe they don't care about the environment the way we do. So what I've been working on with colleagues in Indonesia and overseas for the last few years is to answer these key questions. Is it legal? How do we do it? And what would judges accept? And I just want to give you an overview of some of the findings that we've had. We've been looking through, and the first question, is it legal? Well, we've been looking at what types of things could be claimed in different countries. And this is work that we're now getting into lots of details. So for example, if you lose private earnings, private livelihood, or private property, can I sue the person who harmed the environment? And you see in some countries you can't, but in many countries you can. But the key take home here is that you see Indonesia is yes, yes, yes across the board. Indonesia has a legal framework that is really accommodating to providing remedies. But importantly, you also see many other countries, including mega diversity countries, that have frameworks that allow us to use these cases, these types of lawsuits. But what's really important, though, is that the types of cases across jurisdictions tend to be very rare. They're not common in practice. So the broad answer is, can we do this in the law? Yes, it varies across countries, but it is possible. But it's still not being done very often. The question then we had was, do we know how to do it? And what we found overwhelmingly was that lawyers, ecologists, judges, prosecutors, in some cases had done this successfully, but in a lot of cases were uncertain and still are uncertain about, okay, yeah, the law is there, but how do we do it? You see, if you break the law, and I use criminal law, it says, if you deforested illegally, then the fine will be, I don't know, 10 million rupiah, and you will go to jail for 6 months. So you see that it's very clear. The law tells us what to do. The law tells the prosecutor what to ask for, the investigator what to expect. The bad guy knows what the punishment will be. The judge knows what to do. But in hukum perdata, it's not so clear. The law says if you harmed it, you should fix it. But it doesn't tell you how to fix it, on what time scale, using what techniques, and also we know biodiversity, environment, ecosystems are multidimensional and very complex. So while the criminal law is very, like you get an instruction manual, civil law you don't. So this is a paper that's the kind of the core of today's talk that we just published. It's on early view we published it just last month in conservation letters. And we basically are, one, introducing conservationists to these topics, environmentalists to these topics that we don't think many colleagues are familiar with, but two, spelling out a framework that could apply to many countries for how you might develop a civil lawsuit in a case involving biodiversity. And we use Indonesia and orangutan as our key example to illustrate this for the world. And I just want to refer you to this website where we're starting to compile all of our ideas that I hope might be of interest to you. So do we know how to do it? No, in many countries, but we're starting to create resources because we want to make it easier. Because one thing's clear, we cannot just let the lawyers do this because they're not doing it. We can't let the government just do it because they're in many cases not doing it. So we need to provide resources to make it easier. And I just want to give you an example of when I say, how do you do it? This is kind of how we conceptualize it. Again, this is an orangutan example. Let's say we have a case that of orangutan trade, like I mentioned earlier. Well, you have removed an individual from the population. What is the harm that you cause? Well, you have threatened the survivorship of the whole species. So what would be an appropriate remedy that we would seek through law? Well, maybe an action to increase the number of individuals. If you removed one individual, maybe you should find a way to reintroduce one individual. Well, maybe you could do that by actually reintroducing the animal. It's true. But as far as the wild population is concerned, maybe instead it's something more appropriate would be to increase the area under conservation or to improve scientific monitoring or enforcement of that area. Now, who decides what the remedy is? Well, not lawyers, scientists. We are the ones who are often studying these species, studying these ecosystems, working with communities. And we are in the best position, I would argue, to be advocates, to use our science to help courts and activists communicate what the remedy should be. Let's give another example. That individual needs to go to a rehabilitation center. Well, maybe the defendant should be asked to pay for the vet care, for the health, for the long-term costs. Now, those are much easier to understand, right? But then there's other types of values and things that colleagues from your program will really understand. And that's the fact that we have many intangible values for nature that I've already referenced. Can you put an economic value on those? Maybe someone's going to use travel cost method or contingent valuation, some fancy economic method. But can I ever really capture the economic value of a critically endangered species getting more endangered? Economic tools are not fit for purpose there, I would argue. So what are the sorts of remedies that might be appropriate? And again, maybe an educational program to raise awareness, maybe a public apology. These are the sorts of more creative things that we can think about that can help to heal when harm is caused. Now, when I came to Indonesia, we started talking about this and many colleagues said, yeah, this has sort of been done like in the Kalista Alam case. Since Kalista Alam, there have been about 15 cases that we know of that have been like this in Indonesia. So quite good, a lot of challenges though. But a lot of cases said, oh, if we try to use this for illegal wildlife trade, for PSL, will it be possible? And people said, no, the law won't allow it. The law does allow it. Then the next barrier that we found was people said the judges will never accept it. Well, I had the great opportunity to spend time with judges in Indonesia on several training programs. And during the coffee break, we were discussing, and I found that many judges were interested. So we did mock trials. We did interviews and mock trials with judges, showing them a case of illegal tiger trade. And we said, would you accept hukum perdata in this case? Would it be a response that you would consider in your court? And all of them said yes. And then we said, well, would you allow a remedy for the cost to rehabilitate the tiger? Many said yes. We said, would you support a conservation education program? Many, but not all, said yes. And so this it's not predictive, right? But across this hugely diverse sample, this is from 32 judges across the country in a very diverse pool, what we found was that the door is open. They're willing to consider our arguments. But who's going to make these arguments? Lawyers? Activists? They can help, but ultimately it's scientists who are going to find what is the right remedy and who are going to be expert witness in court to convince the judge or jury that these claims, that these environmental rights exist and need to be upheld. We have been promoting this and discussing this for a number of years, and I'm really excited that Walhi Sumut decided to take up this approach in a PSL case. This is a case that you may have heard about. It's currently in court right now. And this is the first civil lawsuit for illegal wildlife trade in Indonesia and one of the first in the world. For wildlife trade, we always respond with criminal law. And this is one of the first times where we're using civil law. This was a zoo that was illegally keeping endangered species, including Sumatran orangutan. And what are the remedies that while he is requesting? They want money for the care of the animal. They want funding for scientific and enforcement patrols to help increase the orangutan population to recover for the individual that was removed. They want a public apology from the defendant. And they want financial support to do some educational programming in Medan to teach about the harm and the cultural harm that was caused by illegal wildlife trade. So we'll see what happens in court. But the point here is that the law is there, the opportunity is there, but it's only going to happen if activists and also scientists start to contribute their work into this. And I want to acknowledge that this work is a huge collaborative effort. As I mentioned, I'm not a lawyer. And so with funding from the UK government through the Illegal Wildlife Trade Challenge Fund, but also inputs from colleagues, lawyers, economists, ecologists from a number of different countries, we've really put together this framework, and it's encouraging to see it start to being applied. And what's really exciting is as we presented it, we now have colleagues in Cameroon and in Italy and other colleagues in Indonesia who are saying, great, you've shown us the way, we're now going to be litigating our own cases. So for me, this is a big victory. And I just want to share a few resources, and including all available at that website. And also a short animated video that I want to mention, which is also available in Indonesian, that explains the idea of using hukum perdata as a response to uphold our environmental rights into the future. So thank you very much, and sorry for going a little bit over time.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Jacob. You still have 5 minutes, actually. There is in chat box, I would offer one answer from you. There is, if you can look in chat box. It's question from Vika Carolineorita. Yeah. Have you analyzed that ecological valuation from wildlife or habitat loss has often been used by judges to give punishments to the offenders to create deterrence?
So the first thing is that I think you're probably talking about in criminal law rather than in civil law, because for civil law, we don't have cases really to look at. And in criminal law, again, the rules are set out. There are maximum fines and maximum imprisonment that can be given. But you're absolutely right. There's been a lot of work, including from, I think, colleagues at IPB and also the Wildlife Conservation Society, of showing the judges, why should you apply the maximum penalty instead of something lower? And the way they're often doing that is by highlighting the value of wildlife. Now, one thing that I want to make really clear, though, is that when I say value of wildlife, I do not mean value of wildlife. I do not mean monetary value. I do not mean value on the black market. And the reason is this: we can have two species. One is critically endangered and has huge market price, tiger. Another one maybe is a small snake, some sort of python maybe that they collect for the pet trade. The value is relatively low, also critically endangered. The value of those two species is not determined based on their market value. As we know, it is determined based on their conservation status. Not even their ecological roles, just their conservation status alone should be enough. So I really want to highlight that idea of value, but not monetary value. And this is important because often people who are not environmentalists say, oh, how much was it worth on the market? And that's what they want to use to determine how big should the fine be. But our argument as environmentalists is the market value doesn't matter. What matters is their ecological value. So have we done analysis? We are actually currently doing an analysis of criminal enforcement against wildlife trade in 7 provinces. We're using the open data from the courts that's now available, right? That's relatively recent, the online documenting of cases across Indonesia. So we're gathering those and we're looking at fines and species and types of offenders. But unfortunately, that does not show us what the judges thought. The judges don't write what their reasoning was for giving the fine. So we have to interpret, but without that. We could go interview more judges, and I would like to, but as you can imagine, getting an interview with the judge is a very laborious process.
Good, thank you, Pak Jacob. At the moment, I think I would like to stop the discussion while we are continuing the next speaker. You may look in the chat box, yeah, and also please also write down the link of your new paper there so people can download directly, and then congratulations for this new paper, Pak Jacob. Yeah, thank you. As a second speaker, I would like to invite Pak Herry. Pak Herry, I hope you are still with us here.
Yes,
Pak Herry will speak about the environmental management and governance system in Indonesia towards sustainability advantage. Yeah, I think of course this is based on your research and the team, yeah, Pak Herry, yeah? And we will enjoy your presentation. Please, Pak Herry.
Okay. Oh. Yes, I'm doing very much. Okay.
Yes, wait. Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you, Iskandar. So good afternoon, everyone, and good morning, Jacob. I enjoy your presentation, and also love to hear your voice again, yeah, after several years. So my talk will be the environmental management and governance in Indonesia towards sustainability advantage. It's very general because the committee gave me environmental management in Indonesia, just add the governance, and also to add the purpose. What the purpose? To me, like the purpose, making sustainable is our competitive advantage. It's not our burden. Let's see how to do it. I think it is good to know, yeah? And written by myself, Sonia, as well as Benny Okada, my colleagues at C4. So my presentation structure will be a background and understanding how actually management and governance work, and where to go, how to get there, how to make sustainability our advantage, not our burden, for Indonesia in particular. Also, what the key messages that you can take from this presentation. Okay, it's perhaps good to know what forest and population, why the problem of environment is going big and bigger now, yeah? Because it's very simple. You know, the population of the globe is increasing. Now is 7.8 billion people, but the extent of forest is decreasing. Long time ago, when our prophet, for instance, Nabi Muhammad, the issue of environment is not so big because only 300,000 people lived there at that time, and so many forests. But not our case now. Eh? In the past, one guy like us has perhaps 100 hectares of forest. Now, not even one hectare of forest you own in the globe, yeah, in the world. Yeah. So this is make a problem for us. That's why Jacob, even in UK, have an interest of forest, not only in UK but in the globe. Yeah, how to conserve, to secure forest in the globe. And also in Indonesia, is the population's increase, you see, and the forest cover is decreasing. So that's why the problem of environment is now is different from 100 years ago. Yeah? Whatever solution we would like to have cannot be derived from the old solution. You cannot say 100 years ago this is work, yeah. But the situation is different. Yeah? This sometimes happening, and we refer to indigenous people. Yeah? They live in harmony, yes, but it is 30 years ago, but not now. Yeah? now it's very different. So the message is we have to find our own solution today. And now, now it's zaman now, it's not zaman old. That's why student is very important. Think, use your head to solve the problem. I like this picture. This is Stephen Hawking. I visited many times the Cambridge University in UK and England, and he mentioned that related to forest is decreasing. The humanity to greatest challenges only two. First is climate change, and one of them caused by environmental degradation, and the second one hit by an asteroid. So the second one is we can only pray to the God perhaps, but the first one is that's a human problem actually. We can prevent it if we want. There's climate change, natural disaster, environmental crimes that Jacob mentioned several times, and unsustainable practices are happening now. There's flood, you see flood, we see still fire, illegal logging, and also unsustainable practices. We mentioned in the word cloud that people love to burn the land because it is efficient in terms of cost as well as in terms of time. And also I see the network is a lot of people involved in the crime, the environmental crime. It's not only poor guys involved, but it's organized crime. There's a group of people, local elite, as well as the companies involved in burning land. Let's call it the organized crime. That's why it's not easy. It's not only the problem of poor people, but also the problem of rich companies. And again, as climate is happening, climate change is happening now, and if we fail to tackle the climate change, then many will be affected. Migration, water crisis, extreme weather, natural disaster, a lot, as well as financial failure. So a lot will be happening if we cannot tackle the climate crisis. It's not only climate, there's many connected, including biodiversity loss and conflict, interstate conflict, terrorist attacks, even the terrorism. And we have to also understand the legitimate demands on land and forest product. So everyone has a legitimate demand. Some people want to produce paper for you guys, for pulp and paper. Some want to produce a plywood, furniture. The small people, perajin want to, ibu-ibu want to make a chair to get some money, as well as the oil palm company want to grow oil palm, and sometimes they are legitimate, they are legal, sometimes illegal, but sometimes legal by government, by our law. So it's not all degradation environmental by caused by illegal activities, some legal and legitimate. They have a legitimate demand, but how to solve it? As well as orangutan, they also have legitimate demand, because orangutan cannot live in oil palm plantation. They have to live in forests. And also we understand the increasing demand of ecosystem services. See, as I mentioned earlier, the forest ecosystem is decreasing, the population is increasing, so they will demand more and more ecosystem services, ecotourism, water, carbon, and also once human being getting richer, usually they want to have a more environmental services. 1%, the poor person, usually need less than the rich guy in terms of ecotourism, water tourism, as well as biodiversity. So demand of ecosystem services increase. And Indonesia want to play a major role in climate change and biodiversity. Ibu Siti Nurbaya, also President Jokowi, want to the NDC already committed, and some will mostly will use a nature-based solution, not a technological based, not artificial based, but more nature-based solution. So this commitment is already there, yeah? But the problem how to do it. And this is commitment is commitment, and then we have a new law called it Omnibus Law on job creation, law number 11/2020, and what will change the game there? I'm interviewed by many journalists on it. Yeah? This is my word cloud, yeah, just simple run and pivot. What inside the law? And you see the 10 dominant concept is government, business, tax, Indonesia, regulation, state, center, law, licensing, and business. You know, I cannot see, and where is the environment, where is the conservation, where is the climate? And the most important law now, yeah, it's like omnibus, like what is a giant law. Yeah? But if you can see, whereas forest is very small, yeah? Climate, environment. Yeah? So it means that this is more on the business, conservation, yes, but not much. Government will take a role. That's why in the letter of my presentation, we as part of the civil society perhaps have to stand up to voice of the environmental sustainability, because government is very clear that they want to have more tax, pajak, permit, business, and job creation, particularly post-COVID, depend the program pemulihan ekonomi nasional. Also, I'm a bit worried if they concern with the environmental conservation. And again, another complexity I would like to add is the fourth industrial revolution will affect the very essence of our human experience. So everything will be affected by 4.0, including our life, including environment, including externality, the way we work, job, and if we lose job, usually our behavior will be less environmental friendly. This is the first one. The second one of my presentation is coming from my recent publication, how management and governance work. Management, and if we talk about the technical economy, optimization, government is talk about the power relation, talk about the voice of people. And you see, management and governance explain about 60% of the variation of in sustainability and livelihood. So if you talk sustainability, it depends on the management, governance. And see, this is the structure coming from 100 interview using SEM, the modeling technique, the simultaneous equation modeling. See how the structure institution will influence actor, and actor will influence the sustainability. And see the actor, who are the actor? Actor is not only government. This is ACP, actor-centered power. Is another approach to understand actor. The other SNS, social network analysis. Who are the actors? Private companies. According to the network, government was not strong in terms of network. Private companies who determine the sustainability. Traders, farmers, NGO. So this is and also district government, financial agency, international bodies. This is for the network and for the job of they have as central government, the top one, but followed by private companies. Private companies is getting more and more powerful, as well as international bodies. It's like UN, UNDP, whatever, C4, getting powerful in influencing sustainability. None can control entirely what will happen. This is very important. You cannot really depend on the central government to ensure the sustainability. You cannot. It's very simple. Cannot. And corruption, oligarchy, organized crime can happen everywhere. In central government, in traders, farmers, financial agency, and also the omnibus law changed the game. Yes, a lot. See, this is the research and see what our contribution. We are here actually. So if you want to be part of the central government, you are the actor of sustainability. If you are traders, you are also the actor of sustainability. If you are research and academic organization, you are also the actor of sustainability. So don't or never depend on central government. It's not enough. They have lack of power, lack of capability. So everyone matters, particularly in the 4.0 environment. And this is one other my research. So where are we going, Indonesia? There are three options. This is the between productivity and sustainability. It is very easy to be sustainable and you are not productive. It's very simple. This is from our game, this colorful landscape game, and I published in International Forestry Review. See here, a productivity low, then everyone is sustainable. But if you want to be more productive, see, can you be a forest-rich development? Perhaps, but not the case of Indonesia, for instance. Or you continue to deforest your forest, call it a treadmill deforestation. Some Africa did. And there is a middle way, call it a runway deforestation. Can we use forest or environment to fuel, to energize development? So forests disappear, and then by some time, then the reforestation. It is also the case of France, the Prancis. Most Prancis has 40 million of forests, but in the 18th century, the forest only 6 million, or 40 to 6 million. It's decreasing a lot, Prancis. And now the forest in Prancis around 17 million. Bounce back. Shapes Indonesia to follow runway deforestation to me, because Java is more or less bounce back. Sumatra is stabilized. Sumatra is stable. I have a research on it. It's not going more deforestation. Kalimantan, Borneo, and Papua still deforestation happening here. So I think we have to believe that it will happen in Indonesia, following France, for instance. The runway deforestation, not treadmill, but treadmill is we continue to deforest. And some people, even in IPB, love to deforest of forest. And this is for another my journal article. I think one challenge is how to reconcile palm oil development and forest conservation. Why? Because palm oil gives us a lot of money. Very simple, it's almost 300 trillion, by 25 billion US dollar coming from the export. But at the cost sometimes the forest conservation. How to reconcile this increasing productivity, land swap scenario. previous speaker Jacob mentioned law enforcement, incentive for not using fire, and also clear where belong to community and also to company, and also doing some clear indicators, sustainability of Indonesian palm oil industry. We have a challenge. EU will went to biodiesel in 2030, but actually the total export value only decreased 1%. But the danger if EU call Pakistan, India to follow their step, and same they call it, will be a nightmare for palm oil after 2030. Let's see what we can do. So we work very hard to make sure that our economy is still growing. And this is also another publication. It's very important, as I mentioned. Fire is not the to blame a certain actor, but all involved. There's land claimers, there is a marketing, there is a proper group members, the individual village head, kepala desa, involved, and burning land is economically profitable. If you sell land without burning, it's around 600. If you burn the land, the price of land will increase. So and then if you change into planted with oil palm, then the price is increasing. So this is economy, the good business, but at the cost of environment. This is another submitted article. I think it's a bit good news that public and private commitment are increasing. There's a public commitment from moratorium of oil palm expansion and forest conversion. See, this is the South Kalimantan, but this is in 1990, and see in 2019, a lot becoming the red one is oil palm and also palm plantation. So we have to say enough is enough for oil palm. That's why the government, the public is very clear. Public, the government. Jokowi mentioned moratorium with the oil palm expansion for company, but not for small people. As well as forest conversion, peatland conversion. And also good news that some private, they apply they comply with the sustainability and legality certification by private sector, following RSPO, ISPO, some actually PFC, SVLK, the FLECT, and not yet the FSC1. And the role of civil society is very, very high. There is Forum Das and there are many NGO, civil society academicians take part in the conserving and making sure that the sustainability is the right way to go in place. This is from Papua. One I interviewed as well by Mongobae. Belasan izin kebun sawit di Papua Barat dicabut. There is a deklarasi Manokwari there, Manokwari Declaration, mentioning that both Papua and West Papua want to be a conservation district or provinces, but how to go, So in the left side you see is the oil palm is there, but sometimes not all oil palm is bad, but some actually very bad. So they would like to get a concession, but not planting oil palm, just like idle land, just like Pesta Pora. So now in Papua Barat there are permit of 600,000 hectares, but only planted less than 100,000 hectares. 500,000 hectares will be probably converted again into forest? Because it's not clear. If they want to develop oil palm, please find the bare land, for instance, the deforested land. Now they would like to get the green forest converted into oil palm. So this civil society movement and a lot of NGO, our alumni, IPB alumni there, part of the NGO movement. Also, now we have to prepare how to develop our economy, understanding as well the relation between the ecosystem and COVID-19, and participate in preventing similar disaster in the future. And the most important, how to play a role in the recovery of the national economy. How to do it, I don't want to say if because of economy, then they burn land, they kill orangutan, because the sake of economy. Because economy is also very urgent needs for people. And this is also a good news, Yes, Indonesia can, Deforestation, fire, CO2 emission was decreasing in 2019-2020. It's very clear. The burn area from 1.6 million decreased to 0.3. The deforestation for 460 to 150, as well as the CO2 emissions decreasing. How to make sure it is? We keep it like this, So we have Ibu Siti Nurbaya, how to support her program, the good her program, to make sure that deforestation is low, CO2 emission is low, and burn area is low. This is the report coming from the SIIA. I was invited by Singapore International Agency, something like that, 3 weeks ago to speak, to comment on their report. It's good sign for NDC. And the third one, way forward, making sustainability as a competitive advantage of us. So sustainability will be more and more demanded in the future. It is the way to go, but it's not instant demand. It is the way to go. Jacob from UK can tell us the story of Green Deal, the demand from UK, from EU, from US to the sustainability. It is the way to go. Be transparent, no point to hide. Everyone knows our environment, our pollution, and say it. And so yes, we have a problem. With deforestation still happening, but we are progressing. Itu tidak apa-apa, Pak. We do not to lie. Just say there is deforestation. Fire still happening, yes, but see we are progressing, and also improve collaboration with EU and UK in particular. US depend on the president. US now Joe Biden's was Donald Trump's. It's not okay. But EU and UK seems consistent with the demand of the sustainability, and there is a way, but it's not. If they want us to do sustainability things, it's not by 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. It is work on progress is what we need. I think we are much better than Brazil, for instance. So landscape approach, that's a game that I produce. We need to reconcile between agriculture development, for conservation. We need both. We need money from oil palm, but we need ecosystem services from forest. We need both. How to respect each other, not to merambah each other. How to respect. How oil palm and cacao and rubber respect the forest, as well as forest. How forest to provide space for oil palm, for rubber, for paddy, for food. Green and multi-business investment option, ecotourism, mining, plantation, and food. How can we live together? This is landscape. So the sustainability is not in particular unit management, but we look at the landscape, yeah, consisting of forests as well as food, estate, yeah, as well as mining, yeah, ecosystem restoration and climate smart practices. Yeah. We have to do it, yeah, because climate change is happening. Also, how we becoming aware to the disaster. I think disaster is part of our life now. How to adapt, yeah. Even Joe Biden mentioned in the next 50 years, Jakarta will be disappear. So don't buy any house, ya, Pak, apartemen, Pak Iskandar, in Jakarta, ya. So invest in
You have
Bogor.
to, Pak Herry, you have 2 minutes to go.
Okay. This sustainability concept evaluation from sustain yield principle, multi-yield sustainability, and then the ecosystem and social value. And do something good on the ground, yeah. This is what I'm doing in Bengkalis, yeah. Community-based sustainable business model. Do, yeah, whatever you can do, Pak, in 1 hectare, 2 hectare, 3 hectare, 10 hectare, yeah. Don't only talk a big scale, yeah. So make you berguna, yeah, useful, and scale that you matter. Yeah. That's what we did, funded by Singapore, by Temasek Foundation. Also shaping the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So how Indonesia take part and also shaping, yeah. Also managing externalities caused by it. I think a lot of new externality, environmental externality by 4.0, nature-based solution. Will Indonesia be loser? I hope not, yeah. Ensure that the revolution is human-led and human-centered, yeah. Not by robot. Yeah. Who and how? You, yeah. As I mentioned, this is our work. We have a 1 dot, and how we connect to more on the 200 dots, yeah, of initiative. Yeah. Be a good dot, respect, connect, and contribute. None is powerful enough to control the system. You matter. There's no one able to control the system now. The world is complex. Just be a good thing now. Yeah. And after all, sustainability is mandated by 1944 Constitution. The Article 33 ayat 4, yeah, this very clear, yeah, written explicitly and in our Constitution that the economy must be sustainable, environmental friendly. So we do good thing. It is according to our Constitution. It's not according to UK or EU, but demanded by our Constitution, our own Constitution, Indonesian Constitution, Pak, ya, 45. Ya. This is my last presentation. The world of environment today is different from 20 or 100 years ago. Ya. So don't look back, Pak, ya. It's okay lah, ya. Sometimes there is indigenous people live 500 years ago able to live in harmony, yes, but at that time as tidak banyak orang, ya, lot of forest. We are zaman now try to solve our problem, ya. Now, ya, we can learn from the past, but the solution in the past mostly irrelevant for now. Ya. The role and demand for good environmental is getting bigger and bigger with less forest and ecosystem services. Uncertainty with the COVID-19 effect and omnibus law effect, still uncertainty. I think it's important to mention that take individual and collective action and respect, connect, and contribute to others. Yeah? So be a good dot is a way to go, but and then connect to others. Thank you, Pak Iskandar. Thanks for the time. So give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Herry. Dear participant, unfortunately, Pak Herry, we have not enough time to have a Q&A for you, but since the conference is still going on, yeah, before the closing, I encourage the participant to check or to write in the chat box, Pak Herry, yeah, if there is question, and then if Pak Herry could also type the link of your paper, maybe good that this time the participant can download directly the 1 or 2 your latest paper in the forest economic and policy. I think it's need also to be informed to the participant for their future readings, and of course contact with Pak Herry and Pak Jacob is welcome. I think welcome. I think if the many of us here are young scientists as well, students, so please contact both of them, the two well-known speakers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have completed the session. I'm sorry because of time, we cannot continue for the Q&A, but both speaker has presented new perspectives, how sustainability basically can be achieved. It is not simple, requires a lot of efforts, requires a lot of networking, requires also individual commitment to make it happen. I would like to thank again for the great speaker. Please put your emotion by clapping hand, And I feel that the presentation from both resource persons are beneficial, I think, for us and of importance to the audience. And of course, very relevant to enrich the overall seminar objectives. I give the time to MC Dr. Vivi to continue to further agenda. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Pak Herry. Thank you, Pak Jacob. Yeah, if you are still here, please, Dr. Vivi.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar, for moderating the amazing last session for today. And thank you very much for Dr. Jacob Phelps and also Professor Herry Purnomo for addressing the interesting presentation. So again, please give applause for the speaker and the moderator. As we still have the invited speakers and moderator, let's have a group photo together before we continue to the next session. So please, to all the participants, kindly turn on your video camera. How many slides we have?
4, I think 4.
Wait. 4 slides. Okay, yes, we have 4 slides. So, okay, on my cue, first slide, 1, 2, 3. Second slide, 1, 2, 3. Third slide, 1, 2, 3. Fourth slide, the last slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you again for all the invited speakers, Dr. Jacob Phelps and Professor Herry Purnomo, and also the moderator, Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar, and all the participants who is addressing the question for this session. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are almost reaching to the end of this event. But before we continue to the next agenda, that is summary and closing, we will play the short video. So please enjoy the videos.
Kekayaan alam yang terkandung di dalam bumi pertiwi bukan hanya sebagai simbol keindahan duniawi, namun juga sebagai sebuah potensi. Bersamaan dengan potensi sumber daya alam yang luar biasa, turut timbul beragam permasalahan proses pengelolaannya. Terlebih, industrialisasi dan perkembangan zaman menjadikan persoalan semakin kompleks. Untuk menindaklanjuti hal tersebut, dibutuhkan tindakan nyata yang diantaranya adalah mencetak sumber daya manusia yang handal dengan kualitas intelektual dan mumpuni di bidang pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan. IPB University mewujudkan aksi nyata melalui hadirnya ilmu pengelolaan sumber daya alam sebagai salah satu program studi di Sekolah Pascasarjana yang terkemuka di kawasan tropika dan sebagai trendsetter dalam pengembangan program studi lingkungan di Indonesia. PSL-IPB menghadirkan program magister dan doktor yang merupakan wadah untuk mencetak SDM yang mampu mengembangkan ilmu dan teknologi serta seni di bidang pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan. Ada pula konsentrasi minat studi program magister meliputi diplomasi lingkungan, manajemen dan perubahan lingkungan, pencemaran dan bencana, dan sistem agromaritim berkelanjutan.
Capaian pembelajaran program magister ilmu pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan, yaitu mampu mengembangkan ipteks dan praktek profesional melalui riset hingga menghasilkan karya inovatif dan teruji. Mampu mengidentifikasi dan menjelaskan, mensintesis dan merumuskan konsep ipteks dalam manajemen pembangunan dan permasalahannya, mampu mengaplikasikan serta mencari solusi dengan menggunakan pendekatan sistem secara holistik untuk pembangunan yang berkelanjutan, dan mampu mengelola riset, inovasi, dan pengembangan ipteks pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan yang teruji dengan pendekatan multi dan atau interdisiplin yang bermanfaat bagi kemaslahatan masyarakat dan keilmuan serta mampu mendapatkan pengakuan nasional, regional, dan atau internasional.
Program studi tingkat doktoral PSL-IPB menyelenggarakan dan menjadi pelopor dalam kegiatan penelitian dasar dan terapan dalam pengembangan ilmu dan teknologi, serta seni yang baru dan original di bidang pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan yang berkelanjutan. Program Dr. PSL-IPB berkonsentrasi kepada minat studi yang diantaranya kebijakan dan sistem manajemen sumber daya alam dan lingkungan, pengelolaan dinamika ekosistem dan jasa lingkungan, dan pengelolaan dan mitigasi kerusakan lingkungan, kebencanaan dan perubahan lingkungan.
Selamat datang di program Doktor Ilmu Pengelolaan Sumber Daya Alam dan Lingkungan IPB University. Program ini berdiri pada tahun 1976 dan merupakan salah satu program doktor tertua di Indonesia dan sampai saat ini telah meluluskan lebih dari 600 doktor. Rata-rata setiap tahun kami menerima antara 20-30 orang mahasiswa program doktor, terdiri dari program reguler yang perkuliahannya hari Senin sampai Jumat dan program khusus yang perkuliahannya berlangsung Jumat malam dan Sabtu. Sehingga saat ini kami mengelola sekitar 150 mahasiswa aktif program doktor. Program doktor IPB University saat ini terakreditasi A dari Badan Akreditasi Nasional dan sedang dalam proses menuju akreditasi unggul dalam sistem akreditasi yang baru. Program doktor ini sifatnya multidisiplin sehingga dosennya berasal dari berbagai fakultas di IPB. Saat ini program ini diasuh oleh 36 dosen, 26 diantaranya atau 70% adalah guru besar. Program yang kami asuh mencakup program by course dengan mengambil sejumlah SKS mata kuliah yang dilanjutkan dengan penelitian disertasi dan program by research yang lebih menekankan pada penelitian. Kampus kami berada di Baranang Siang, Bogor, dan memanfaatkan resource sharing dengan berbagai laboratorium di IPB di Baranang Siang maupun di Dermaga. Kerjasama pendidikan dan penelitian kami bina, baik dengan berbagai lembaga pemerintahan maupun swasta di dalam negeri, maupun dengan universitas mitra di luar negeri, antara lain dengan Jepang, Australia, Perancis, dan lain-lain. Dengan semua ini, kami berharap dapat menghasilkan doktor ilmu pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan yang handal dan berintegritas.
Proses pembelajaran turut ditunjang dengan berbagai macam fasilitas yang lengkap, seperti ruang perpustakaan, ruang seminar, ruang administrasi, ruang audiovisual, serta koneksi internet yang cepat. PSL-IPB secara aktif terus melebarkan sayap dengan melaksanakan kerjasama internasional pada bidang studi lingkungan bersama universitas-universitas kelas dunia. Keberhasilan pencapaian ini merupakan bentuk peran aktif dari SDM PSL-IPB yang senantiasa terus berkarya, berinovasi, dan berdedikasi. Namun, sejatinya salah satu misinya yaitu mencetak para lulusan PSL-IPB yang mampu mengembangkan pengetahuan IPTEX di bidang pengilmuannya dan melaksanakan praktek profesional melalui riset hingga menghasilkan karya inovatif dan teruji. Bersama PSL-IPB, mari kita wujudkan generasi dengan sumber daya manusia yang berkualitas, mumpuni, berdedikasi, profesional, dan berdaya dalam berkontribusi nyata di bidang pengelolaan sumber daya alam dan lingkungan. PSL-IPB, Inclusivity, Resiliency, and Sustainability.
Okay, before we come to the closing of this wonderful event, Professor Widiatmaka, as the head of doctoral program of Natural Resources and Environmental Management Study Program, IPB University, is going to deliver the summary of this ISeNREM 2021 and announce the Best Presenter Awards winners. Please welcome Professor Widiatmaka.
Thank you, Mbak Vivi. Good afternoon all ladies and gentlemen. Selamat sore. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to closing remark statement, and I believe that all of you have well done through the 2 days this international seminar. It is my great pleasure that you had fruitful discussion during 2 days. Also, I think this 2 days seminar is not enough. Yeah. In this second international seminar, we use the main theme as towards a new era of natural resource and environmental management. During the seminar, we have learned a lot from the keynote session delivered by keynote speaker, the 6 amazing invited speakers who have shared their interesting topic, and in the parallel session where presenters have shared their interesting work. Once again, on behalf of PSL-IPB, on behalf of the committee, thank you for delivering such important material so that all of us can deepen our knowledge about natural resource and environmental management. Ladies and gentlemen, furthermore, I would like to thank to all presenters and participants who have joined this international seminar from several countries, Thailand, Sudan, Tanzania, and also the Netherlands, and also, of course, from Indonesia. With this, with several countries, the proceeding which will be published has fulfilled the requirement of at least 4 countries to attend an international seminar for lecturer. The amount of the paper presented according to the schedule, were in the seminar were 126 papers. There were only 2 participants which are not attend the seminar. I would like to thank first to keynote speaker and invited speaker. We have here yesterday opening speech from Rector IPB, which is represented by Professor Dodi Nur Rahmat, Vice Rector, and keynote speech from Minister of Environment and Forestry, represented by Dr. Mahfud, Head of International Relations of the Ministry of Environment. Then also invited speaker yesterday, Professor Zeljko from University of Zagreb, Croatia, Professor Rizaldi from IPB University, and Professor Tasuku Kato from Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology, Japan. Today, this morning and this afternoon, we hear the thematic keynote speech from Lieutenant General Dr. Honoris Causa Doni Monardo, and also from Chief of Geospatial Information Agency, Professor Aris Mafai, and also invited speaker Professor Zeljko this morning, and Dr. Phelps and Professor Herry Purnomo, especially which is in this screen. Thank you, Pak Jakob and Prof. Herry Purnomo for delivering the speech. All plenary have been moderated by Professor Damayanti Bukhari, Professor Hadi Susilo Arifin, and Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar. I would like to thanks to you 3, and we would like to thanks also to all moderator. All moderator come from lecturer from PSL-IPB, and also for Center for Environmental Research IPB PPLH, and also researcher from Geospatial Information Agency. I am certain that every presenter has presented their research result. I sincerely hope that through your presentation and discussion afterward, all of us can contribute to solving the problem of environment and management of natural resource in our own environment. Through the contribution may be small, but it is still valuable. In terms of scientific conclusion, there are many or several points can be noted, which are first, the paper presented can be grouped into 4 topics, namely environmental change and disaster management, environmental policy and diplomacy, environmental management system, and geospatial environmental planning. The topics match with the area of interest in master and doctoral degree in natural resource and environmental management study program, IPB University. Second, environmental change and disaster management still being a huge concern among scientists. And also, there are a wide range of natural resource, environmental, and management system which have been discussed. Most of these have good novelty and presented in a very good style. Environmental management have been discussed, including peatland, health assessment, conservation forest, basal system, etc. This includes also environmental issues on the regulation, policy, and stakeholder participation. Some important results are that low community participation still occur. Implementation of the policy are dominated by government activities in the national fund. Community and business action is not yet facilitated properly, and new regulation process indicate to become top-down policy. 5, there are several technologies that can be used to protect the environment, from optimization of agriculture, bioherbicide, cleaning of heavy metal from water, renewable energy generation, carbon footprint, etc. And that geographic information system method can be used for various environment and development management plan. The result of the presented study show that the method is scientifically capable of measuring many phenomena useful for natural resource management. 6. Several other issues will be precised as conclusion of the seminar, including greenhouse gas emission, forest management, economic impact of natural resource management, and other issues. Ladies and gentlemen, although this is the last day of the international seminar, the seminar process is not over yet. There are still some steps that should be done. First, we will review in more detail the paper presented in this two-day seminar. And then second, we will send for all participants an email of the full paper reviewed. We will select the paper and send them to IUP proceeding. And however, we cannot guarantee that your paper will be published by IUP because the final decision will be decided together as at IPB University and IUP. The waiting time will also be depend on the process. Therefore, we kindly ask your patience. And third, please revise your paper according to reviewers' comment and adjust your paper template according to requirement of IUP proceeding in which your paper is going to be published. And lastly, the next thing I would like to say, we are happy to announce the Best Paper Award during this international seminar. We have 6 prize, 6 prize. 1 prize for best paper, 2 prize for second best paper, and 3 prize for third best paper. For the first place, best paper come from Sustenes Jerome Nakamu from IPB University, but he come, I think, from Tanzania, yeah? Is it
Tanzania, home of Kilimanjaro.
Tanzania, yeah? Okay.
Congratulations,
Please
Sustenes.
give the applause for Sustenes Jerome Nakamu, yeah? And the second place, there are 2, Jumhuriyah S. Said from Indonesian Institute of Science, LIPI.
Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations.
And the second place goes to Aldiano from Indonesian Institute of Science of LIPI.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. The third place goes to Irwan Ari Darmawan, Pajajaran University.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Irwan, congrats.
And Ulfah Khairunisa Nurulitasari from IPB University. Ulfah is there also.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And the last third place, Safarisa Dian Pratiwi from Piarea Environment and Technology. The best paper and presented will be give money prize and certificate, of course. Yeah, we will precise after. Yeah. Again, thank you very much for your participation. Hopefully, this international seminar can add to the scientific relation between us. Even we organize it in a pandemic condition. Yeah, hopefully the situation will improve soon, and we can meet in this normal situation after the pandemic. That's all for me. I return screen to Mbak Vivi to MC. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Widya Maka, for the summary and for the announcement. So to all the best presenter, please wait for the committee. They will contact you soon for the for the distribution of the gift. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you are welcome. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, to officially close our event this afternoon, we are pleased to invite the Director of International Program, IPB University, Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar, to give a closing remark of ISeNREM 2021. Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fifi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, all participants of the ISeNREM 2021. I believe that all of you have well done through the two-day virtual seminar. It is my great pleasure that, from the observation that you had a very fruitful discussion. In this year's seminar, was the main themes towards a new era of natural resources and environmental management. As expected, that every participant has made a good presentation, I should believe it, on 4 different topics or sub-thematic areas, as outlined in the program book. I also expected that you to understand the diversity of knowledge products presented in this seminar, from which you all could promote the mutual understanding. And we observe also the active discussion. So if it is allowed, I can conclude that the main objective of the seminar has been completely accomplished. In addition, your commitment again during this difficult situation to attend the seminar and positive manners revealed from the good preparation and great efforts despite COVID-19. I would like to appreciate all the participants and committee for very active contribution in the seminar. And what you have experienced through the seminar will help you a lot in your future works and bring more confidence and spirit in facing our challenges. The same thing can be applied to like establishing a new network during seminar. Even you have another opportunity to chance and meet new friends, including the possibility also to connect with our respective invited speakers. Please, as mostly young scientists, do not hesitate to make contact or send a message to them. Yeah. So Professor Widi mentioned the 6 excellent invited speaker and keynote speakers. Yeah. And congratulate the winners. Yeah, the winners on your achievement for this presentation. Finally, on behalf of International Program IPB University, I would like to express my appreciation to all participants for taking time out of your busy schedule, although working from home mostly. Also, I appreciate the study program NERMS and REMS, Natural Resources and Environmental Management Science, Graduate School IPB, Center for Environmental Research or PSL-IPB, Geospatial Information Agency or BIG for successfully co-organizing this international seminar. Thank you also for summarizing the highlight of the presentation as done by Pak Widi. I would like to close my remarks and officially on behalf of the IPB announce the end of the seminar, wishing you all the best for the future. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for the wonderful closing remark, Professor Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially closed ISeNREM 2021. Hopefully the event will be beneficial for everybody. Again, for those who join halfway of the seminar and have not filled the attendance form or having a trouble in filling out the attendance form, please contact the committee, Mr. Arif Kurniawan, through private chat. Hope to see you again in the next ISeNREM. I'm Vivi Gusdianti as today's Master of Ceremony, and on behalf of the organizer, we beg you pardon of the mistake we have made. Please have a great day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Pak Yaakob.